Hello and welcome again to this edition of FiTV. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. We are coming to you during the opening day of the 2020 legislation. We are joined by Matt Dixon of Politico Florida, amazing writer, pithy, and loves throwing out some good barbs here and there on Twitter, so check out his Twitter feed. Matt, what are you writing about today? What's going to be the big story?
Well, I think initially, and probably by design, Speaker Jose Oliva came out absolutely swinging this morning in his opening day statement. I understand some of the language he used. He went after the typical folks, hospitals, the healthcare industry, some of his sort of typical heels. He's been a reformer in that space, but he really went out after them with some very aggressive language that we're not always used to seeing on the first day. Yeah. It's kind of a day for, a little bit of pomp and circumstance. All the flowers are on the floor and everyone's in kind of a good mood. Well, Jose Oliva decided to sort of toss a grenade into that party today, and we're really kicking off early some aggressive rhetoric on his sort of healthcare reform packages.
What? Like what? What are we looking at?
The biggest one that first he actually, both him and President Galvano had good 2019 sessions, so they got a lot of their big priorities off the board. They checked a lot of boxes as far as personal priorities. So one of the big priorities for him this year, as I'd mentioned, he had a good 2019 session. Right. One of his big ones this year is scope of services, the idea of expanding things that nurse practitioners can do outside of a doctor or physician. That position is posed by doctors, by FMA, that the medical folks, and he's really going after it hard this year. Our healthcare reporter, Alex Glorioso, has been all over that issue. She knows far more about it than I do, but I know enough just to be dangerous, and I do know it's going to be a huge issue in the interplay between the House and the Senate this year, because Senate President Galvano has not necessarily signed off on those reforms, and that's sort of the Senate is where FMA and some of the healthcare industry folks are going to go to kind of hide and get protection, and you can kind of watch the healthcare fight happen to probably the very last minutes of session.
It's amazing to watch the FMA when they really roll out their bulwark of protection of their care and their scope of services, and then you have the nurses and the nurse practitioners and the PAs and everybody. It's really an interesting battle.
It's a group that is very protectionist. They've over the years, they've been one of the most powerful groups in town here, and they've done a good job playing defense. Yeah. In the past few years, the House has been, even under former Speaker Corcoran, have been very, very aggressive, going after some of those issues, but they've done a really good job of sort of marshaling the governor's office and the Senate in order to do what you just talked about, play defense.
Should be interesting to see how that all shakes out. All right, so where do our viewers go to see what's next for Politico Florida?
If you guys want to check out Florida Playbook tomorrow, we'll have a really good wrap-up of the first day of session. It's the newsletter that I and Gary find outright, so check your inboxes.
All right, I love it. Can't wait to look at it, and can't wait to have you and Gary and whomever else from Florida or Politico Florida on. It'll be great. Matt, thanks for coming on FiTV.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.